one in the air to left center field. Maven on the run, out toward the wall. It is gone! That ball is deep, and it's not coming back. That's a long home run for Odubel Herrera. That ball's hit well, deep to right field. Marquez going back. It is gone! Three-run home run for Freddie Galvis. Man, is that an exclamation point on a productive offensive night. There's a little hop in the step for the Philly fans coming to the ballpark today to wrap up this four-game series against the Atlanta Braves. 12 runs last night for the Phils. That is a season high here at Citizens Bank Park. Matt Stairs knows a thing or two about hitting some home runs. So does Mike Schmidt. It's Weekends with Schmidt, presented by Acme Markets. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy, joined by Mike, and Matt will be along in just a little bit. So will Greg Murphy. Matt's busy signing some books as we speak. Alumni Weekend wraps up, and I'll tell you, it's really refreshing to watch what the Phillies have done offensively and to watch what Ryan Howard has done offensively.
Man, it sure is. Is this the same team? It's a pleasure to watch him, no doubt. And, of course, a really good offense, a good team, has a consistent cleanup hitter. And Ryan Howard has been that for about 30 games. Here you see him night before last, double in the gap with the bases loaded, scoring 3. Then you'll see him last night, same area, same place, line drive, single, man in scoring position, scoring Maikel Franco, who ran through a stop sign. Here he is, just a nice little double down the left field line right inside the foul pole, speeding into second base. There you see him, a little short step, pop-up slide. He's doing it all right now. And, you know, the Phillies' offense is good. It is really good right now. And Ryan has averaged 452, 12 RBIs. Doubles, he's doing it all. He's even walking, scoring some runs. So if Ryan Howard's hot, we'll be hot.
Well, that's a 7-game hitting streak for Ryan Howard. He's not the only one, though, that's got a hitting streak rolling right now for the Phils, and that's a good sign to see guys doing it collectively. Now, they're going to be tested today. Julio Teheran, who hasn't been great for the Braves all season long, but over the last 5 starts against the Phillies, 3-1 with a 0.96 ERA. He likes pitching in this ballpark, which is odd considering his road numbers.
Well, he likes pitching against the Phillies. He's been a nemesis for them for a long time. You know, he's kind of a basic pitcher, fastball slider. He likes to move his fastball, ride it up, as you see right there against Dominic Brown. He'll sink it away also. There you see that. His out pitch is mainly his slider. And you know what? This Phillies offense needs a test like this right now. You know, we're all wondering, are they this good? Are they this good? Well, Teheran will come out today and provide a test for the Phillies offense, and I'm looking forward to watching it.
Well, we'll see what happens. The Phils are looking for the series sweep today against the Atlanta Braves. It's the same matchup we saw earlier this year in Atlanta. It'll be Teheran, his 22nd start, and Adam Morgan, a kid from Marietta, Georgia, who faced the Braves and Teheran back at Turner Field. Will get another look at the team he grew up rooting for. Well, Dominic Brown has been one of those guys swinging the bat well over the last several days. How about the big swing by Cameron Rupp? All of these swings and this entire offense leading to a hopeful sweep here at Citizens Bank Park. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity, the official entertainment provider of the Philadelphia Phillies. By Citizens Bank, one deposit checking. Keeping things simple is helping you bank better. By Toyota, where will Toyota take you? Visit buyatoyota.com to find out. Toyota, let's go places. By Coca-Cola, the official soft drink of the Phillies. By Budweiser, still brewed the hard way. This Bud's for you. And by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Learn more at ibx.com. Before the start of today's ball game, Jeff Francoeur, Cesar Hernandez up the first base line. And of course, the starting 9 also got an autograph from their favorite Phillies player as this game got set to get underway. Let's take a look at the Braves lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity, the official entertainment provider of the Philadelphia Phillies. Cameron Maybin leads it off at center, then Yuri Perez. Freddie Freeman bats third. Chris Johnson cleanup. Johnny Gomes will be in the 5-hole. He'll play left field. Jace Peterson bats sixth. In the bottom third of Lavarnway, Castro, and Tehran. And they will face Phillies left-hander Adam Morgan. Morgan out of Marietta, Georgia, not too far from downtown Atlanta, 2-2 on the year. He got a victory in the game against the Blue Jays, game 1 of the 2-game series against the Blue Jays. So far, 20 strikeouts in 33 1/3. Matt, he kind of gutted out that game against the Jays, figured some things out after the first couple of innings.
Yeah, he did. And after the first hitter shot a home run on the second pitch, he settled down. You see the Budweiser scouting report, 88.7 average velocity, 4-pitch pitcher, but only uses his curveball 2.6% of the times. And it's actually not a bad curveball, so I kind of like to see him flip some more curveballs up there.
Well, he's just finishing up his warm-up tosses as we speak. We love our pigs in the bigs. Yeah, there are a number of the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs that have made their way up to the Phillies this year. Time now for our Nissan keys to tonight's ball game. Matt,
well,
today's?
For me, I'm going to keep it very simple. Even keel. They're playing very well right now. You know, they didn't play very well the first half, but even keel. Don't go up, don't go too low.
How about you, Mike?
Are you saying taking winning in stride?
Yes.
For me, it's past the test. Today, as we talked about in the opening, Julio Tehran is going to be a good test for the Phillies offense. And it's one they need to pass as they go on. If they're going to continue to be as good as they are, they're going to have to pass some of these good tests.
Yeah, because they have a test coming up after this series is over when the Dodgers come to town. They'll face Greinke the last day. 2 balls and no strikes to Cameron Maybin, who's leading off today. Nick Markakis has the day off. Maybin is 2 for 13 in the series. It'll be Maybin, Perez, and Freddie Freeman. Sort of a revamped lineup for Freddie Gonzalez. And it's 2-1.
Well, we're going to see Chris Johnson, Johnny Gomes, some more familiar names today with the left-handed starter.
Have to figure the Braves are chomping at the bit to get something going offensively as Cameron Maybin begins the first with a leadoff single.
Well, Maybin did get him going. He hit the ball hard. I think Freddie thought he was going to come up with that.
I think he did too. As he ranged to his left.
You see Freddie kind of lays down on this ball right. It's to his left. Boom, right there. I think he thought he was going to catch that ball, man. Yeah, maybe he didn't. Close-up shows it's a little further from him than we thought.
Well, now Yuri Perez, he's 4 for 8 with an RBI in this series. Maybe you got to keep an eye on him. He has stolen 17 bases. Cameron Rupp doing the catching today. And his numbers are very good, throwing runners out. Outside, 1 ball and no strikes.
You know, and actually with the Nissan keys to the game today, I actually wanted to put a third one in there. And for Morgan, first pitch strike's very important today.
Matt, you could have put as many as you wanted in there.
That's good to know. Sang, be ready.
Shows bunt, takes outside 2-0. But you're right, just getting ahead so then he can work off that first pitch strike with his other pitches. His velocity is a tick or two down so far here in this first. He's not going to overpower you anyway with his fastball, but it is a little lighter than usual.
Well, and when you're hitting 91 miles an hour, sometimes it keeps hitters honest. But when he's living at 88, 87 right now, there's not going to be that big difference between the fastball and the changeup.
At the knees, and it's 2-1. That fastball's at 86 miles an hour.
You know, I still think it's comforting for our pitching staff, especially the young ones, to know that we're going to score some runs. You know, they get in a little funk like this right now early on, like Nola did yesterday. You still have the confidence to know that you don't have to be perfect now.
Yeah, Nola kind of said that after the game last night. He said it enabled him to not just throw strikes, but to try to find something with his fastball.
Yeah, I mean, you can still stay with your game plan a little bit. It's not the end of the world if you give up 1, 2, even 3 early on, because it just looks like we're going to put 4, 5, 6 up there.
2 balls, 2 strikes, runner at first. A little high, and it's 3-2. Maven does not go, and the pitch is ripped into left field, a base hit. Well, back-to-back singles now for the Braves, and that puts runners on first and second with nobody out.
Well, that goes to show you the old 3-2 fastball right down the middle is going to get hammered. If you're not going to get ahead of the hitters, put a little panic in them so they'll chase a little bit, and you can throw some off-speed stuff to fool them a little bit. You're going to get pounded.
There we go. We've adjusted the keys to the game. We've put first pitch strikes in there as well.
I like it. Thank you.
We could come up with some more too as the game goes on.
Freddie Freeman 5 for 13 in the series. Swing and a miss. That's a good offering on the first pitch to Freeman.
See, we put up the new Nissan keys to the game, and what's it do? It's a first pitch strike. Because we're just giving some Nissan just some love right now.
Yeah. Out toward the alley in left center field. Odubel Herrera is there, makes the catch. Maben was tagging late, and he can't go. And Odubel quickly got that throw in. So 1 away.
Yeah, 1 bullet away. 3 batters, 3 hard hit balls.
Maben does the right job and notices that the ball is going to be caught, but it's the hair late. You want to see him do a nice secondary lead. That's why it's so important to see where your outfielders are playing before the pitch is thrown. He should be on third base.
Yeah, Matt, I think he drifted a little too far off, maybe 1 or 2 steps, so that quick back touch the bag and you could still tag up and go.
Because if that ball drops, he's going to score from second base no matter what.
Absolutely, that's right.
And Herrera's going at an angle away from the infield.
Chris Johnson the batter, and Johnson takes a strike. It's 0-1. He plays mostly against left-handed pitching. Overall hitting .234 with a home run and 9 runs batted in. For his career, he's a .312 hitter against lefties. Odubel Herrera out in right center field, and Maben tags and stops. 2 outs.
Well, that one came out of the sun, Matt. I guess it was in the sun for a moment. Kind of go into a little panic when it goes in the sun, and boom, then it comes back out.
88 degrees, a little bit of a breeze, 6 miles an hour.
Goes to show you the difference in that runner on third.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to second.
Now, the Braves have acknowledged that they have not played clean baseball during this losing streak that they've had. In fact, they had some upset veterans after last night's game, obviously, where the Phillies scored 12 runs. Johnny Gomes, the batter. Gomes has been used as a pinch hitter once in this series. It's 0-1. See the Braves numbers on the road: 20-38, 26-20 at home. Just a bit low with that fastball. 1-2. Gomes did have 1 hit against Adam Morgan the last time they faced each other. A Little dribbler out towards shortstop. Galvis has got it, and he fires across the diamond, and Morgan works out of this potential jam in the top of the first. Does so with 18 pitches. No runs, 2 hits, and 2 men left. Phil's offense will get their first look at Tehran when we return. Scored 12 runs last night against the Atlanta Braves, so he's going to run out the same lineup here this afternoon. It's brought to you by Xfinity, the official entertainment provider of the Philadelphia Phillies. Hernandez, Herrera, Franco, Howard, Brown, and Galvis. In the bottom third of Cody Ashe, Cameron Rupp, and Adam Morgan. And they will face 24-year-old right-hander Julio Tehran, who is just 6-6 this year with an earned run average of 4.71. A lot of base runners this year and a lot of home runs for Tehran.
Well, he's actually missing a lot with his pitches this year. When he's missing bad out over the plate, and everything he's throwing up there is getting hit hard.
Cesar Hernandez will lead it off. He's hit in 3 straight. He's had a heck of a series, 6 for 13. And it's 1 ball and no strikes to him. Cesar's average at 280 with 1 home run and 24 runs batted in. Pulls that one off the end of the bat to right field, and Perez will make the catch for the first out. And here's Odubel Herrera.
Got to be a good feeling for Pete Buchanan to be able to continually pencil in that similar or same lineup day in and day out. And I think that's one, Matt would agree, I'm sure that's one element of a good team, a manager that's throwing that lineup, that similar lineup out there, with the exception of maybe an 8-hole hitter, a platoon player somewhere in the lineup. But he comes to the ballpark and he knows what lineup's going to be out there. It's not like pulling them out of a hat like it was early in the year.
I remember when Charlie was managing those teams that won 5 straight division titles from 08, 09, 2010. You can write in 1 through 7 every day as you look at the Budweiser scouting report.
4-pitch pitcher, average velocity 91, and 325 average versus his change. Curveball 333 and his fastball at 279. That is the reason why he has been giving up the long ball. Too many pitches middle of the plate. That last pitch right there, fastball inside, was good. The pitch before that, the changeup, was very good. That's the problem the Phillies have versus Tehran, is his changeup.
Well, Odubel Herrera last night was bringing the lumber. Brought to you by Yellowwood brand pressure treated pine.
He brought the Yellowwood all right. He knew it. Absolutely crushes 430-foot home run, second deck right field.
inside, 2-2.
I wonder if that's what you're going to see more often today, is pitches inside that are moving Phillies hitters.
We talk about that all the time.
We do. Comfort zone.
Fly ball left field. Johnny Gomes, he didn't see it right away, and now he picks it up for the second out.
Well, the pitcher, Tehran got away with a pitch right there. That ball split the middle of the plate. Very, very hittable pitch, and you got to realize it. We talk about pitches, pitch location, command, and all those kind of things quite often, but hey, the great majority of times hitters just miss pitches to hit.
I hear you.
There's a lot of pitches to hit.
Well, this guy didn't miss one last night where he hit it off the wall just to the left of the 409 sign. Takes outside, 1-0. Michael, 283, 11 home runs, 40 runs batted in. And a breaking ball, 1-1. That is the slider from Tehran.
Throw that pitch again. That'll be about 25 rows deep.
There's a bullet deep down the left field line. It is foul. And it was far.
And hard.
Wow.
And loud.
I mean, that ball, it not only went near HK's statue, but it just kept on going.
That's one of the worst walks in baseball. The walk back to home plate. Right? The walk back to home plate after you just smoked one 400 feet, an inch foul.
Wow. Look at that thing over HK's head.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying, but he knows what you're saying.
Yeah, it's.
I can only imagine, though. You're like, hey, how can you do that again?
And what usually happens afterwards?
Well, now the test to yep, see?
Well, he's not happy at all as he's down on strikes. You don't often see Franco slam his helmet and his bat like that. And we'll head to the second inning. Figurine given out to all fans for the Phils and the Blue Jays series. It's a 2-game set, the 18th and the 19th. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. No scores. We go to the top of the second here at Citizens Bank Park. Looked like there were some issues going on in between innings between Michael Franco and the Atlanta Braves dugout. Somebody from the dugout, it looked like Freddie Freeman at one point was saying something to Michael, and he had his arms away from his body, chirping back to him. Guys, we were talking during the break about the home run and then the ball up and in. And
yeah, it was sort of a old school moment, if I could call it that. Been there. Matt's been there. Smoked that home run foul, as I said earlier, when we're going through it, and then boom, you get that neck ball, and right then you want to. The pitcher basically has gotten your ire up, and now it's your job. It's the onus is on you, so to speak, as a hitter, to relax and try to win the at bat. And Franco, of course, jumped out there. Wanting to smoke the next pitch, and the slider, and he ends up striking out, slamming his helmet. He stared at the pitcher stared at him, and you never know whether they have any history in winter ball or something like that. And then when they went back out on the field, he exchanged some words with the dugout. So boys must be boys.
Here's Lavarnway with one man down, and he swings at the first pitch out toward right field. Dominic Brown a few steps from the track, and there are 2 outs. During the 2015 season, Turkey Hill, the official ice cream of the Phillies, will contribute $100 for each Phillies victory and 5 cents for each carton of Phillies Grand Slam ice cream, sold to support the Phillies youth baseball and softball programs. Now, there was a little bit of a moment there where Lavarnway went to second base because the ball did drop off Dominic Brown's hands, but the second base umpire, Mark Carlson, felt there was a clean exchange where he was able to get the ball out of his glove, and that's when the drop occurred. Here's Castro, takes outside, and that is what you have to do as an outfielder. You have to be able to take the ball out of your glove. Down the left field line, foul.
Matt, my guess is we haven't seen or heard the last of that earlier incident we were talking
I would
about
agree with that.
in this game today. Depending upon how the game goes, Braves aren't playing well. They've lost. They've been pounded the first 3 games here.
That one's out toward the alley in left center field. Odubel backhands it. Going to second base is Castro. The throw is offline, so he'll get his first double.
That ball was smoked. It was a changeup. Looked to me like kind of gave it away a little bit. I don't know why. It was kind of red changeup when he let it go as it slowed his arm motion down.
It's a good swing. That's what we call smelling the ball. Getting your nose over top of home plate. Didn't hook it, stayed through it, hit the left center. Getting back to what you were talking about, Mike, I agree 100% with what you said. Because you know that Franco wants to hit a ball so far to left field next time up, which is an advantage for a pitcher right now.
Play off his aggressiveness.
Yeah, I mean it's look, as a hitter, you never want to be thrown up by your head. I don't think it was as close as it seemed, but.
Well, you want to know what postponed anything related to that incident was that double that Castro just hit. With Tehran at the plate now and a man in scoring position, he probably.
This is that fastball up and in.
You know, it was a really good pitch. If we were on the other team, we'd be going, now that's what, that's exactly what was needed right there. They're just too comfortable at home plate. I don't know what it is, but when you're in uniform and down there on the field, you don't think that way, do you?
You're cursing. Someone's going to pay for that.
That's right.
We're going to smoke you next time you're up, yada, 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 and it's actually a good pitch. But you expect that, though. When we talked about back when we played, you expect to get a ball like that when you are absolutely pummeling a team on the field.
Oh, for sure. How much can they take before somebody gets one up at their neck, and who's it going to be?
There's been one person hit in the series so far. Herrera.
Right. Tehran floats it to right. Dominic Brown will put it away. Simons retired. So a 2-out double. And the Braves have left 3 through the first 2 innings offensively. We'll move to the bottom of the second. Ryan Howard will lead it off when we come back. Tuesday night at 7:05. On Thursday, the series wraps up with the Citizens Bank Pride of the Phillies print featuring the Phillies mural. Free to all fans, plus Nemours Kids Run the Bases post-game for fans 14 and under. Tickets can be purchased anytime by going to Phillies.com. On Tuesday, of course, as we've mentioned before, we will be right behind, well, right near the Phillies on deck circle. It's our announcers on deck. Last year, we went out towards center field, and this year we're going to get a different view behind the net, right next to the authenticator, right where those two guys, those two folks are with the red shirts. The gentleman to the left and the young lady to the right will be in those seats right there. Matt, we're going to need some sunblock.
Yes, and we'll have to just talk to Murph because he'll have a lot.
Yes, he does. Brian Howard will lead it off. Howard 18 home runs, 60 runs batted in. 32 RBIs in his last 34 games. Towering fly ball to right field. I don't think Perez sees it. He's backpedaling toward the wall and reaches up. It's off the scoreboard. Howard's on his way to second, and he'll get there diving. Leadoff double, his 22nd of the year.
Ryan's credited already with a 2-base hit. I guess there's no doubt. Ball must have been in the sun, as we see it again right here. That is a Ryan flying out of the batter's box. And it hits about number 5 high there. Oh, he hits off the glove.
He does hit off his glove. Well, they've been capitalizing on mistakes since the break. Let's see if they can capitalize here. Dominic Brown rips it foul deep down the right field line. No balls and 1 strike. Well, Dominic Brown has been very good, Murph. We all know that. He had a quiet night last night. Had a base hit. He's hitting 3 straight, but he's driving in some runs.
Yeah, you know, Tom, we talked about it about a week ago. Pete Mechanic came out and said that he didn't want to change anything about Dom Brown because he was getting base hits, but he said ultimately they need him to be a run producer, as he takes that one on the elbow. They need him to be a run producer, not a run scorer. And over the last couple of days, well, he has been just that, batting .356. He's got the 2 home runs in the last 3 games and 9 RBIs in his last 12 games. So that is going to make his manager happy. That's what they need out of Dom Brown. The guys are on base in front of him. They want him driving in runs. They don't need him to be the guy that's scoring those runs all the time. They want him to be a run producer. And of late, he's been doing just that.
Well, he takes one in the elbow. And he's aboard. Freddie Galvis is coming up, and you wonder if Galvis will try to move the runners into scoring, both runners into scoring position. Don't forget the guy on second doesn't run all that well, so the bunt has to be perfect here.
Well, they're going to have a set play where Johnson's going to charge from third base. That's where he bunted. Just bunted it hard enough to third base where he has to field the ball.
Or don't. And it's 0-1. All right, so here's Dominic Brown getting hit by this pitch.
Oh, the back forearm. Hit him in the left forearm.
Well, it's obvious that Tehran is trying to get inside today. Ooh, what a bunt by Freddie Galvis. He may beat this one. Tehran does throw him out. What a recovery by Tehran. The Braves expected that bunt to go to third, and then Freddie Galvis bunted it toward first. The sacrifice is successful.
There's a lot going on here, Tom and Matt.
Yeah, there is.
First of all, that was a fantastic bunt. They gave Freddie a shot, you know, to swing away, and unless he missed a sign on the first pitch. Makes a perfect bunt, catches first baseman playing back. Tehran makes a great recovery to get the out.
You know, and didn't make it. He made a great play on the bunt. I think right there with the swinging at the first pitch, allowed Freddie Freeman to back up, not thinking he was going to bunt. That's the reason why he pulled the bunt right there. Because usually you want to go to third base, because Freddie would be charging.
Here's Cody Ashley with runners on second and third. And Cody pulls it toward the hole. A base hit into right field. 1 run is in. Here comes Brown. He's being held. The Phillies take the lead. It's a 1-0 ball game here in the second. An RBI for Cody Ashley, his 20th of the year.
Well, that's good to see Cody getting in the RBI act. think that was number 20, if I'm not mistaken. Tehran's going to have to do something about his first pitch. It is getting smoked. And, you know, back to Tehran. Here it is. He hooks that ball a little bit, which in that situation is not all that bad because it does score a run either way. That's his job, to try to pull the ball to the right side. Move the runners up, score the run, but it does get through, so he gets a knock. Even the pitch that hit Dominic Brown, Matty, was, I thought, a pretty good pitch as well. You know, I mean, these guys are getting pounded all over. It's not like he's hitting people in the back or, you know what I mean, hitting people on purpose. They're good pitches. That pitch that hit Dominic was just kind of up and in by his chest off the back. Everyone tends to overreact. Well, I never overreacted.
I think it's the overreaction a little bit sometimes because it's, you know,
the heat of battle.
Franco hit a bomb to left field. Next pitch is up and into his face. Dominic Brown hits a ball off the facade, second deck, foul. Next pitch hits him. It's just when the pitches are coming in after situations.
Hayward Rupp a little late, and it's 1-2.
Well, here's Cameron Rupp can become a better hitter in situations like this. I mean, he's very, very susceptible to breaking balls, hard breaking balls. So if just a nice little ground ball to the right side will score a run, or a fly ball to the right side. You know, make him jammy in this situation, right? Easy RBI.
And he's down on strikes. Second strikeout for Tehran, and that'll leave it to Adam Morgan. Adam does have one hit. In fact, he thought he had his first major league hit against the Atlanta Braves, but it was changed to an error after scored a hit. Then he came back and doubled for his first major league hit.
Off of Fernandez.
Fernandez, yeah. Jose Fernandez.
Double to left field. Mike Morris playing shadow in left field. Did the roundabout route.
Oh. The bat goes flying out near first base. It's a foul ball. And it's 0-2.
Well, that was a great bat toss right there.
I don't know if I've ever seen that, where you make contact with the ball and the bat goes
that far.
Hey, new Olympic sport.
Hey, I'm all for a light grip on the bat.
Today's Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Edward Hassenpat of Collingswood. Phillies hit a home run in today's ball game that Edward will win $100. Outside and high, 1-2 to Morgan. Threw him a breaking ball, and Adam Morgan is struck out. 3 strikeouts for Tehran. The Phillies do strike first. They get a run on the RBI single by Cody Ashe. As we move to the third, it's 1-0 Phillies. PhilliesFans.com. Go to the fan section for all the information. Please submit your answer on the subject line. All right, guys, the question is this. Who holds the Phillies rookie record for most at-bats in a season? Phillies record for most ABs in a season. And it was a lot.
It could be that same guy that we've had as an answer to this question either late last year or earlier this year. I won't tell you the name.
Does he have a Phillies connection? Or a Braves connection?
A Phillies connection, of course.
Okay.
Well,
you know, we're trying.
It could be a Braves.
Well, you just said, didn't you say Phillies rookie?
Yes, I did, but
sometimes they have a Phillies connection, you know, Phillies rookies.
No, but I'm saying Phillies. You are right about that. I did lead it down the wrong way. I meant Braves. Yeah, I did mean that. Here's Cameron Maybin. Maybin singled his first time up, and he takes outside. It's 1-0.
Gosh, I don't know if he has a Braves connection or not, though.
He doesn't, just so you know. Oh. That's not right.
His answers, he always goes, oh.
Swing and a miss. 1 ball, 2 strikes. I'll give you the year, just to help you out a little bit. And it might jar your memory. 1984.
Probably get it now. Yeah, okay.
Outside, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Mm-hmm.
You moved the paper. I was writing the name.
They've written their answer down.
No, not they.
Weren't you writing that answer down?
I stopped because I was wrong.
It was somebody that didn't walk a lot.
Hence the amount of ABs that he had. 3 balls, 2 strikes to Cameron Maybin, who singled his first time up, and he floats that one to shallow right. Hernandez out. Dominic Brown doesn't. Yes, he does. Tomorrow morning, rise and shine with the first look at Eagles training camp with live reports from Barrett Brooks, Marshall Harris, and Jeff Mosher. Wake up with Bob from Eagles training camp tomorrow morning over on the Comcast Network. So what a way.
Somebody very durable.
Very durable. Perez singled his first time up. One of 3 hits for the Braves. That one got the home plate umpire.
Man, was Cameron on that fast. You see that?
Yeah.
That umpire, if he had been stunned or was going to fall or something, Cameron would have caught him. Watch. Boom. Yeah.
He's probably used to that sound.
That'll get you a couple of called strikes every now and then.
Inside. Did it get him? Is he going to crawl to first base? I guess it did get him.
He's going to low crawl.
He looked like he was going to slither.
That's funny. It didn't even look like it hit him, did it?
I think it hit him on a hop.
It must have just like smoked his little toe or something. I tell you what, getting hit on the toes, that can hurt. Ooh. I still have a weirdo looking toe on my foot from my playing days. I'm 65 and I still have to wear a little pad on my toe every day because of pounding a ball off of it.
Top back foot.
Yeah, it did get the back foot.
But you know what? His foot wasn't even planted, so it didn't absorb the full feeling of the blow there.
And let's recall too that it was an off-speed pitch.
Well, he looked like he was in an awful lot of pain.
We've got some good lines going here today.
Well, there's one out, and here's Freddie Freeman. Freeman fly to center his first time up.
We have 3 hit by pitches in the game today in the 3rd inning. Oh, I was thinking, my bad. Yeah, correct me on that. I was thinking that Franco's was a hit by pitch and it was just a low bridge.
Off the glove of Rupp. That'll allow the runner to go to second base. And that'll be a wild pitch. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, the Tigers have taken a 3-0 lead over the Orioles. J.D. Martinez has belted a 3-run home run. Orioles welcomed Gerardo Parra last night to a standing ovation. Orioles are 53-50, 5 games behind the Yankees in the East, and in 3rd place in the wild card in the American League. Freeman checked his swing, but he went around. It's 1 ball, 1 strike. Meanwhile, Detroit is 4.5 games back in the wild card.
Freddie Freeman is what you would call a free swinger, but a very controlled free swinger. Does that make sense? I mean,
yep. Very good low ball hitter.
Yeah, it's a short free swing. Tell you what, he's up on that plate and he's got it between his legs, doesn't he? He's definitely challenging the pitcher to come inside.
And he lines it out towards center field. Herrera on the run, and he makes the catch. What a play by Odubel Herrera. Perez was 3/4 of the way to 3rd, so he goes running back. That just saved a run.
And that's the 2nd time Freddie Freeman's lined out to center field. The last time it was left center on the run. This time a great play by Odubel. He watches that ball go right in his glove.
He's playing slide opposite as well. But it's the fact that his first jump, his first move, was the proper technique of opening up and going. Makes a nice running dive. Slash. Oh, nice catch.
Yeah. There's Chris Johnson, who flied out to center his only time up. Pulls it foul. It's 0-1. How much do you think winter ball will benefit Odubel? Play the outfield more, since he hadn't played much of it before this year.
Well, I like seeing him do it, but I don't want to see him go to winter ball and get worn out. You know, playing what, 65, 70 games.
Which is what he did last year.
Another 300 at bats. Comes a point where you got to let your body regroup.
Dominic Brown battling the sun, makes the catch. Boy, it must be a tough sun today, particularly for the guys out in right field. Problems continue for the Braves with runners in scoring position. They're 4 for 32 in this series. and you can't go wrong when you buy right and buy Chevrolet. Visit your local dealer at ChevyDealer.com. 1-0 Phil's on top on an RBI single by Cody Ashe, and now we'll go to the top of the order. After Adam Morgan allowed a base runner, he hit a batter, but he was able to get the last 2 outs with a runner in scoring position. On an outstanding play by Odubel Herrera, and a good battle by Dominic Brown with the Sun to catch the last out. Here's Cesar. He takes high, 1 ball, no strikes. Cesar fly to right softly his first time up. There's an off-speed pitch, 1-1. Ground ball. Bobbled by Peterson. And there's 1 out. Odubel Herrera is coming up. Let's check in with Greg Murphy.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Well, Alumni Weekend continues here at Citizens Bank Park, and this man needs no introduction. One of the 2 men to be on the pitcher's mound when the Phils won a World Series. Brad Lidge, good to see you again, coming in from Colorado, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to be back, and, because I don't get here all the time, it's super special when I do.
You got a chance to see a lot of your former teammates, obviously, some guys who are still playing on the field. But, when you see those guys, does it instantly go back to that 2008 season, the stories?
I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it's other stuff we're catching up about. But I haven't seen Pat really for a while, Pat Burlin, and we've been catching up a lot about 2008. I only got to play 1 year with Pat, but it felt like we were together for a long time, and he's outstanding teammate. So it's great to see him and get to hang out with him this weekend.
When last we talked to you was 2 years ago when you were back and you got retired. You retired as a Philly, and we talked then. You were in school at that point, working on your master's degree. Where are you now? Are you close?
I'm getting close. I'm doing the dissertation part of it right now, and it's tough. It's definitely a lot more work probably than I initially thought, but it's also a great time, and I really enjoy it. And when you're retired, you got to find stuff to do besides play golf. So it keeps me busy, and I enjoy it a lot.
I don't know. I think playing golf all the time would be all right, too. And I know you're involved with MLB Radio. You do a show, so you're keeping your eyes on the big leagues. And one of your good buddies who you still keep in contact with, Cole Hamels, obviously a big change for him this week. When was the last time you talked to Cole?
I talked to Cole not that long ago, but I didn't really bother him a whole lot around the trade deadline. I knew things would probably happen. And I'm real happy for him as long as he's happy. And I think that, looking at the trade, I think it's a scenario where both teams can be winners on this. It could be a win-win situation. The Rangers are obviously getting somebody who's a big-time pitcher in big-time games. And that being said, the Phillies got a bunch of guys, and I think a lot of them are going to pan out. And so I think it was a good for both teams.
And we were just talking about this team over the last couple of weeks, playing some pretty good baseball.
They're playing outstanding, and I'll tell you, I've had a chance to get in the clubhouse earlier today, and the guys are having fun in there. They're happy, and they got a little pep in their step right now. So, this team still has a lot of talent, and they're very capable of going on good runs. So hopefully they can finish this whole second half on a great stretch and feel great about, the offseason and going into 2016.
Well, Alumni Weekend is winding down, but one more event tomorrow, the Alumni Golf Tournament. And, I know you're working on your dissertation, but you're also working on that golf game. You ready to go for tomorrow?
Definitely ready to go. Brought my own clubs out, so I'm very excited. And, I always love playing, and it's a great venue, and it's a great way to really catch up with a lot of people, and it's exciting for me every time.
All right, well, thanks for taking some time with us. We appreciate it. Always good to see you, Brad. Guys, we'll send it back to you in the booth. Guys.
All right, Murph, it is always good to see Brad Lidge. Saw Scott Air today from that 08 team. Scotty looked great. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Maikel Franco. And he's down swinging for the second time. 1, 2, 3. Go the Phils. Well, speaking of Brad Lidge being one of 2 guys on the mound at the end of the World Championship, take a look and listen back.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball. Brad Lidge does it again and stays perfect for the 2008 season.
deliver unmatched quality, and their Jet Intelligent Toner cartridges print up to 1/3 more pages. Get yours from who but WB Mason today and experience the difference. Nobody beats WB on HP. On a warm summer afternoon, the Phils lead the Braves 1-0. Johnny Gomes leads it off. It'll be Gomes, Peterson, Lavarnway against Adam Morgan, who's allowed 3 hits so far. Delivers a strike. It's 0-1. Johnny Gomes grounded out to short his first time up. Low again, 3-1. His fastball is up to 89. That last one was 89 after being at 86 for the first for most of the first inning. Just trying to get command of it. It's not a bad spot, but it's just off the outer edge for ball 4. So leadoff base runner for the Braves. It's now time for you to tweet your strongest fan photo. Use the hashtag PhillyPhotoDataStrongFan, and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Well, here's Jace Peterson. He struck out his first time up. Shows bunt to the right side. It's a good bunt. Hernandez charging, and they won't have a play. A bunt single puts runners on first and second.
Wow, that was a blueprint.
What a great idea.
Yeah, a little get over slider, it looked like. Took it right with him. No man's land.
Well, and because it was so good, it's our GMC precision play of the game.
This is a play you don't see a whole lot anymore. Man on first base and a drag bunt, knowing that Morgan's going to fall off the mound towards third base side. That's what you call an absolute perfect bunt.
All right, so he had 2 base runners in the first. He got out of that jam. Let's see if he can do it here. Braves are 4 for 33 with runners in scoring position in the series. Check swing, slow roller. Well, they'll get the out at first, but the runners do move up. Two, 3 on the putout. Yeah, that puts runners on second and third. And here's Daniel Castro.
We were slightly interrupted here by the donut lady.
Got some Federal donuts for you, Mike? Well, they're warm too. Get them while they're hot.
You'd think she'd know that I'm trying to stay away from food like that. My lovely wife Donna just dropped donuts on us here.
They are good. Castro takes strike 1. It's 0-1. Federal donuts, of course, on sale here at Citizens Bank Park. Matt, you feel them? They're warm.
Yeah, I'm kind of turning them away from me. Now I end up eating all of them.
No man's land. Hernandez, Brown. Brown makes the catch. Tagging from third is Gomes. The throw to the plate will chase him back to third. Two outs.
That's a good play. I tell you what, Dominic's giving his sunglasses a workout out there today. He's had about 4 balls hiding in that sun.
Well, he does a nice job. One, he's not playing real deep in right field, which allows him to get there. And like you said, Mike, fighting off the sun, but getting to that point where you come up and throw an absolute strike. You see Dominic at far right. That's where a base runner, you know how far you can go because you can read the ball because it's in front of you. So nice job getting over there and nice job making a strong throw.
Well, that's 8 fly ball outs today for Adam Morgan. And here is Tehran with 2 in scoring position. And Tehran hits it out towards center, right at Odubel. And again, Adam Morgan works out of a jam, this time in the 4th. The Braves have left 6 through the first 4 innings this afternoon. We'll go to the bottom of the 4th. Ryan Howard will lead it off when we come back. Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop Nissan.com. By Budweiser, still brewed the hard way. This Bud's for you. And by Jefferson, where health is all we do. Call 1-800-JEFF now or visit jefferson.edu. That's what they call a little high sky right there. I mean, it has caused havoc for the outfielders. Dominic Brown has been able to manage it so far. Saw Yuri Perez have a little trouble with it earlier on Ryan Howard's double.
Scary feeling when you're trying to go after a ball and you know it's going to go through the sun. You want to, there's so many different ways to try to get that sun out of play. By turning your body, by holding your glove up there, and maybe the ball will come out of the sun and hit your glove.
And it's not something you practice, right?
No.
It has to be experience. Although, you know, like Dominic or whoever plays right field here probably gets enough of right field in these kind of days to have had the experience before. Used to go to Candlestick Park, and man, was that tough.
And the wind.
Inside, 1 ball, 1 strike to Howard. Tehran has allowed 2 hits today and 1 run. The RBI single by Ashe. The other hit was the double by Howard. And Howard hooks it into the shift. Peterson is up with it, or I should say Johnson is up with it. So 5-3 on the putout. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Budweiser. Budweiser is still brewed the hard way. This Bud's for you.
What is that, ground out right field?
Goes down as a 5-3, and then you have to put RF next to it, just so you know. Here is Dominic Brown, who was hit by a pitch his first time up. 72-mile-an-hour curveball. And then a slider. 0-2.
Tehran's kind of getting into a little rhythm now. The game has been a little rocky for him. He's pitched out of a couple of jams.
He's picked up another strikeout. That's 5 strikeouts for him. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, an update from the Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds. The Pirates have jumped out to a 3-0 lead. Now Neil Walker is homered. Pirates currently sit in second place behind the Cardinals. 5.5 games back. Cubs have won 4 straight. Galvis takes a strike, 0-1. Galvis was credited with the sacrifice his first time up. He homered last night. Last night was the first time since 2011 when the Phillies played the Padres. As you look at Dominic Brown coming up.
Tehran right here, he has a little different delivery. He brings the hand out of the glove. You know, and he brings it back nicely, but all of a sudden then he brings it straight to his ear, and then almost feels like he's throwing darts. And I think it's throwing the timing off of the hitters. Plus, he has a very good slider and a changeup working today. You've seen a lot of hitters, like Dominic Brown when he struck out. I mean, he missed that ball by quite a bit, and the previous pitch the same way. So it almost seems like he's getting the hitters off balance. And he's mixing in his fastball and his off-speed pitch very nicely.
3-2 pitch. And once it's sharply back through the middle, a base hit. Freddie takes a big turn, holds up at first. And that'll bring Ashe to the plate. Well, Tehran, we talked about it. His numbers against the Phillies are very good. His numbers here at Citizens Bank Park are very good. But overall this year on the road, his ERA is over 7.
Yeah, it's brutal. He's 1-5 with a 7.24 ERA on the road with that kind of stuff.
That's why I think they're a little confused about him.
But when we see him, he's a Cy Young.
Yeah. It is amazing, though, sometimes that happens. You know, people say, well, I don't think he's what we expected. And we're like, he always looks really good when the Phillies face him. Out towards shallow left field. Gomes got a late start. Castro, the shortstop, goes out. And he puts it away. Side is retired. No runs. 1 hit and 1 man left. So we've completed 4. He's allowed 1 run. And the Braves coming back in the top of the 5th. All right, guys, the question is who holds the Phillies rookie record for most at-bats in a season? Most at-bats in a season. It was back in 1984.
Yeah, and what fun he was to watch. He was my son's favorite player. Watch Sammy run.
Yeah.
Used to come on the scoreboard, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Juan Samuel.
Still in great shape. Still loves the game. Loves to talk the game.
701 at bats.
That's incredible. 72 stolen bases his rookie year. 36 doubles. As Maben takes a strike, it's 0-1.
Did he get 200 hits that year? Do you have him there?
You know what? That's a good question. I thought he was just shy of it, but yeah, 191. One ball, one strike. Well, hopefully he'll get that pitch as the day goes on, but we're in the top of the 5th inning, and he's just missing off the outside part of the plate. Morgan is. 2-1 pitch to Maben. Juan Samuel might have been the rookie of the year that year if it wasn't for somebody by the name of Dwight Gooden.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, walks did he have that year? 3, 4? I mean, seriously. I mean,
about that many.
You have
probably more hit by pitches than walks.
You have 701 at bats. Lenny Dykstra in 1990 had 773 plate appearances, 637 at bats. He was the only player to ever lead the league with at bats and plate appearances in the same season.
Well, as Sammy will always tell you, Matt, in fact, if you go down and ask him today after the game about walking
off the island,
he will tell you that you do not walk off the island. He had 28 walks that year, by the way. Yuri Perez is 1 for 1, hit by a pitch his last time up, as they keep an eye on Maben at first.
I didn't like the changeup to Maben. Go back to Maben's at bat. He walked. I didn't like that 2-1 changeup to the leadoff hitter. Hoping that he was going to fish for that pitch, go to 2-2 or make an easy out. I don't like going 3-1, 3-1, trying to throw, you know, a trick pitch, an off-speed pitch like that.
Yeah, where that was right after he just missed off the outside part of the plate. Maben broke, then stopped, pitches high, 1 ball, no strikes. Threw 88 by him there, up in the zone. It's 1 ball, 1 strike. Adam Morgan, who was winless down in the minor leagues this year, was 0-6, is 2-2 here in the big leagues. ERA is better up here.
I find that to be one of the craziest stats I've heard in a while. That Adam Morgan was 0-6 in the minor league.
Hadn't won since 2013, partly because of the injury, but yeah. Yeah, he doesn't look like a kid who would be 0-6 in AAA. Fly ball again to right field. Dominic Brown has handled everything so far, and this one he saw pretty clearly for the first out of the 5th inning. Well, the Zach Brown Band will be here at Citizens Bank Park on August 15th. It's all part of the 2015 Jekyll and Hyde Tour. It features the special guest, the Avett Brothers. For information or to purchase tickets, go to Phillies.com/country. Phillies will be on a road trip, taking on the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Brewers. Well, the concert is taking place here. Looking for something to do. It is a great concert. Freddie Freeman lines it to right field. Dominic Brown will make the catch for out number 2.
Look at Freeman. He's gone. Well, that's pretty much got it covered. Left center, right center, and right field. All 3 Line drives.
Yeah, he has 3 of the 11 fly ball outs today for Adam Morgan.
I don't think he had. Well, you call them.
Well, yeah, they probably aren't fly, but they're more line drives.
I do. I have LO8, LO8,
yeah, you're probably
LO9.
right. I have L9 and L8. I didn't put L8 for the second one, but I should have. They have called a balk on Adam Morgan. It sounded like it was more the dugout that called the balk initially, but then the third base umpire, Gabe Morales, put his hands up. Oh, now Mark Carlson saying he called it. Maybe a little bit.
You know, he had kind of a little. Watch this. Watch this. Here it is. See that right there?
Oh, yeah, that's a balk.
Definitely.
His toe got caught. That's what it looked like. He's like a hitter. He's doing a toe tap, picking him off.
Chris Johnson has flied out to center and right in his 2 at-bats. Runner in scoring position with 2 men down. And a foul ball. It's 0-1. Well, that's the number we've been talking about in this series. Phillies have 10 more hits with runners in scoring position and have done so in less ABs. And that one's going to loop into right field, a base hit. Maben's going to score. Johnson's on his way to second. He'll stop. They throw behind him. So we're tied up at 1. As the Braves pick up a base hit with a runner in scoring position.
Well, the balk hurt us there for sure. Put the runner in scoring position with 2 outs. Chris Johnson is a great hitter against left-handed pitchers. Boy, talking about keeping them hands inside the ball right there. That's what he's good at, Matty.
He is good at it, and when he's good, he lets the ball get deep. Kevin, that was one of those years he's got 1 home run already. He's hitting the ball too far out in front. That time he let the ball get deeper.
Oh, with 2 outs and a runner at first, Johnny Gomes is up. They try to curveball. It misses outside. 1-0. He's not throwing a lot of fastballs today across the board. Throws back-to-back fastballs there, and that one sails outside. 2-1.
It's like Johnny Gomes is sitting on changeup. It's 3 straight fastballs that he hasn't even flinched at of swinging at.
No, and that last one was pretty darn good.
Yeah, knee high right down the middle.
So what would you throw him here then if you think he's?
I think I've called maybe 1 or 2 pitches the whole year, right? So I have no idea.
2-2.
Peter away. Curveball.
Wow, that's a pretty good take right there, and he got away with it. It's way too close to take with 2 strikes.
Shocking. Peterson's on deck.
Well, it definitely fools him. Now the ball's low.
Yeah, it is low. Rupp tried to bring it
Still
back
a good
up.
take.
Yeah, it is a very good take. He got fooled.
Runner goes inside. Ball 4. And that puts runners on first and second with 2 men down.
Not the worst pitch in the world. Jace Peterson, left-handed hitter coming up. You don't like to move a runner in the scoring position.
Well, it's 3 walks for Adam, 3 walks and a hit batter. Peterson bunted his way on his last time up. Monday night, get all the highlights from Alumni Weekend as Pat Burrell takes his place on the Wall of Fame. Plus, Leslie Goodell profiles interim manager Pete Mackanin, who's had a remarkable baseball life. Phillies Clubhouse presented by Mercedes-Benz Monday night at 6:30 and 11 right here on Comcast Sportsnet. Runners lead off first and second. Galvis going to trot into the mound, pick up a little rosin. 19 pitches this inning for Adam, but 11 of those pitches out of the strike zone.
Yeah, that's why you're probably going to see someone in the bullpen get up.
Ball's hit well deep to right field, and it is gone. 3-run home run for Jace Peterson, and the Braves take a 4-1 lead. It's the 3rd home run of the year for Peterson, or 4th home run of the year for Peterson. The 2-0 pitch was just too good.
No, he didn't miss that one. Kind of pitched around Johnny Gomes, probably with the left-hander coming up and 2 outs. Not that Johnny Gomes warrants being pitched around, but he went strike 1 and threw in 4 straight balls, brought Jace Peterson up, went 2-0, boom. Down 4-1.
And now Lavarnway goes the other way with this liner. Odubel Herrera will cut it off. Lavarnway's thinking 2. The throw is there in plenty of time. And the side is retired. Outfield assist number 2 on the year for Odubel. And the side is retired. But 4 runs score, the big blow, a 3-run home run by Jace Peterson. Night presented by Kohl's. Come dressed as your favorite Star Wars character and be entertained by Star Wars characters, music, movie clips, and more. Go to Phillies.com/theme nights for more info and to order tickets. Adam Morgan's afternoon is going to be done after 5 innings. He allowed 7 hits and 4 runs. Jordan Danks has come out in the on-deck circle. Justin DeFreitas, who is the Phillies' long man, is warming up in the bullpen. Adam relies on his command so much, and he just didn't have total command of his pitches today. Cameron takes up high, 1-0. But let's see if the Phillies offense can get these runs back. Their run differential, the amount of runs they've scored compared to the amount of runs the opposition has scored, was plus 35 coming into this game in the second half, which leads Major League Baseball. It's remarkable, the turnaround. Considering that they were minus 126 in the first half of the year.
Well, the test's getting a little sterner right now in this game against Tehran. Now 3 runs down. Let's see what kind of team we have in the come from behind area.
Down the right field line by Rupp. That'll slice foul.
Come from behind baseball takes a little more discipline.
Rolled over on that one to shortstop. Castro's up with it. And one away. With one out, Jordan Danks will make his Phillies debut. Pinch hitting for Adam Morgan. Let's check in with Greg Murphy. Murph.
All right, thanks, Tom. Well, as promised earlier in the game, we've selected the Data Strong fan photo of the game. And today's photo comes from at Cloud of Sky. And they've got their picture taken with, well, Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse.
Dressed up in his Phillies gear. You can tweet your strongest fan photo to Philly Photo Data Strong Fan, and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. All brought to you by T-Mobile. Guys?
Yeah, that Mickey Mouse statue is here at Citizens Bank Park. As Danks hits one off the end of the bat back toward the mound. Tehran is up with it, and there are 2 outs. And the Anaheim Angels, the LA Angels of Anaheim, I should say, hosted the All-Star game. Each and every team had their own Mickey Mouse statue. And then, if you wanted it, it could be shipped to your ballpark, and that's what the Phils did. Cesar takes outside, 1-0. Cesar hitless in 2 at-bats, and he's out front. Out toward right center field. Maben's on the run toward the track. He can't get there. It's going to take a hop over the wall. Well, that's a break for the Braves because Hernandez had a pretty good chance to get the third on that ball. But the Phillies will take it. A ground rule double, 14th of the year for Cesar.
Cesar continues to hit. That one 400 feet straightaway center. 2 out double. See what we can do with 2 outs. Try to get the big boys up there.
He made a good effort after it. Fortunately for the Braves, that's the short fence out there. Although Perez was there to back it up, but Cesar was only a couple steps away from second base. Odubel's 0 for 2. He's flied to the left. He's also grounded out. And a line drive base hit it to center field. Hernandez will coast home from second, an RBI single, and it's a 4-2 ball game. They both just keep on hitting line drives.
Yeah, nice to see him be aggressive on the first pitch. You want to get ahead with the strike. Get the ball in the area where he can control. I like the fact that these guys are hitting the ball up the middle.
Yeah.
This is a low pitch. Stays through it, drives it up the middle. And the top of the order has done a very nice job of playing gap to gap, hitting. And that's what right there where Herrera's energy, I think it brings into that dugout.
Yeah, it probably annoys the other team, but it definitely brings it into the dugout, and that's a good thing. Top of the order for the Phils in this series 13 hits.
Well, answer back with one, especially with 2 outs. 2 outs and nobody on. They answer back with 1. That's big, you know. I mean, 4-1, 4-2 is just like almost with this team right now, as hot as they are, it's 1 swing away. And the inning's not over yet.
1 ball, no strikes. That is a big, hefty rip right there by Michael Franco.
Yeah, you know, and it's Matty, it's so wasted as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he's not going to hit the ball off the Fanavision, and that's what he's trying to do. I mean, why not just a nice little crisp line drive right into the stands with a nice 80% swing?
Broke his bat.
Or even that.
Odubel will stop at second. Phillies now with 3 straight hits, and they will bring the tying run to the, or excuse me, the go-ahead run to the plate.
Now, you know what, Mike, that's a great point, and I totally agree with you. That's where, as a young player, you get one under the bridge, you need to back off in your swing a little bit. And even though he does break his bat, the way he took the approach to hitting that pitch, he was committed to pull right when the ball came out of his hand. And that's where, as a young player, you need to step back. So, you know what? Let's just calm it down. You know, there's a purpose pitch, so what? But I honestly think after that first at bat, he was rattled the next 2.
Howard,
you know what?
Outside.
I don't know whether it happened or not, but that's a perfect time after his first at bat, after the first strikeout, for the, you know, someone in the dugout, an older player, a veteran, a leader, or even the hitting coach to go up to him and stand right in his face and say, look, I want you to see that from a mature, you know, standpoint. Yep. That was a very good pitch by that pitcher. You know, we've been beating the heck out of these guys now for 3 days, pounding the ball all over the ballpark. It's exactly what you would want your pitcher to do to the other team if it, you know, when the tables are turned. So just calm down, relax. It's not personal. Get back in, you know, onto your own game.
Absolutely.
Now, how hard is that, though, to accept as a
hitter? He'd probably say, I don't know what he'd say okay, but in his own mind he's going, I'm going to smoke this guy. You know what he's thinking. It's easy for us to sit up here and say that that's the way it should be, but it takes a great maturity to be able to do that.
Howard pulls it. Knocked down by Freddie Freeman. Boy, that's a heck of a play right there. And he just saved the inning for the Braves. 3-1 on the putout. And the side is retired. The Phillies do get 1 back, though, on the RBI single by Odubel Herrera. We've played 5. We'll go to the 6th. It's a 4-2 Braves lead. Among the great names and faces in Phillies history. Pat Burrell's 9 special seasons with the Phils led to 251 home runs, 827 runs batted in, and 8 consecutive 20-plus home run seasons. No hit was valued more than a 7th-inning double in Game 5 of the 2008 World Series. It led to a parade down Broad Street, and now to a permanent place at Citizens Bank Park. He's the newest member of the Phillies Wall of Fame, and it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Well, Ron DeBases has been traded to the Atlanta Braves, and same result as the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. He just can't allow the Galapagos gang to get through a routine. He tried, but Iggy took care of him. And the hat comes flying out. Fanatic is always surprised by that. We go to the top of the 6th, and Justin DeFreitas is the new pitcher for the Phils. First pitch is fouled back by Castro, and it's no balls and 1 strike. Castro's 1 for 2. He doubled his first time up and flied to right field his last time. Playing for Andrelton Simmons, who bruised his thumb on a diving attempt last night. Had x-rays after the ball game. And we'll have, according to the Braves, they said before the game he'll have an MRI when they get back to Atlanta. They're going home to take on the San Francisco Giants. 1 ball, 1 strike. And a foul ball. We were all commenting on how hard he plays. And even in that game last night when they were down by 10, he was still busting it on a bloop out toward left center field. In the dirt, blocked by Rupp, and it's 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, Justin DeFreitas is the key in this game right now, holding them at, where they're at, 4 runs, making it only a 2-run deficit, 3 runs to win the game. So DeFreitas giving us 2 or 3 really good innings right here. At least 2 is a big key to us winning the game.
Dominic Brown out toward right. And 1 away. Pitcher spot is due up, and let's check in with Greg Murphy.
All right, thanks, Tom. Well, there are Wall of Famers everywhere, and we have the 2012 inductee, Mike Lieberthal, here with us. And I guess when you come back and you get to be a part of the ceremony on Friday night and see the new guys going in, it brings back the memories of the night that you were enshrined.
It does. It brings back a lot of nerves. I think Pat Burrell was pretty happy once the speech was over, and he can relax with his family. But it was quite an opportunity. It was great, to bring back the memory of what I had, my family here, and to go on such a wall and special people on that wall with Boone and Darren Dalton. To follow them was it's quite an honor.
You look up on that stage on Friday night, and then, you look around just the suite in here, and you see the guys that played before you and then played after you, and then some of the guys that you played with as well. And you think about the Phillies' history. It's got to be pretty special to be able to celebrate that year in and year out when you come on back for Alumni Weekend.
It does, to be part of such a special organization. I mean, there's not many organizations like the Phillies that really take care of their alumni, and to come back and see guys from, guys that I played with. Burrow's in town this week, so it's really guys from pretty much from 2000 to 2006 when I played here, and to see those guys I haven't seen in a while, even guys that just retired, like guys like Nick Punta, who's only been out a year. It's pretty special just to come back and see players like that. And obviously I always see the Wall of Famers every year. Just to see Mike Schmidt and Dalton and Crook every year is pretty awesome. And to play golf with them is pretty special too.
Which you'll get a chance to do. I know it's been a busy weekend. You've already played golf 2 times. You're going to play again tomorrow. But you're out in California now. So what are you up to? Where can folks find Mike Lieberthal out there on the West Coast?
Yeah, right now just following my 3 boys. One's about to turn 7 in a couple days. And so I have 3 boys, 2, 4, and 6 right now, and they're totally into baseball. I have all the channels up with MLB special package up on TV and 5 TVs going, so they're definitely into the baseball thing, and play games in the family room, and they kind of keep me going with karate and swim lessons, and besides that, playing a little golf with some friends and really just enjoying my family.
Yeah, being a dad is a full-time job for sure. Before I let you go, we were just talking about this team. As you said, you keep up with Major League Baseball, and they're playing some pretty good baseball right now. Who catches your eye, some of these young guys? Anyone jump out at you with some of the guys you've seen?
Well, Franco, of course, at third. I met him in the All-Star festivities. I was doing the MLB.com stuff in Minnesota, and that's when he played in the Futures game. So I got a chance to speak to him a little bit. Great kid, he's a pretty special player. He's got a lot of power. He's a really good third baseman, and I'm sure he's going to be here a while. And there's a lot of other younger kids, and just nice to see some energy in the dugout. You know, they've been on a streak here lately, and hopefully they can keep it going.
That is the plan. Well, Mike, thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and enjoy the golf tomorrow as well. It's always good to see it.
Thanks, Samuel. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, let's send it back to you.
All right, Murph, if you want, there's some Federal Donuts next to Levy if you're interested.
Yeah, we're going to.
3 balls and 2 strikes to Cameron Maben. I think Murph's battery died there.
I think Murph dove into the
yeah, he
donuts.
dove into the donuts. 3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs to Cameron Maben. Ground ball to third, and Franco has it. Got to hurry, and does. Side is retired. Well, nice job, as Mike said. Justin DeFreitas needs to keep this at a 2-run game, and that's what he did here in the top of the 6th. So we go to the bottom of the 6th inning. See if the Phillies can get some more offense going. Of the Philadelphia Phillies and by your Delaware Valley Honda dealers. Hurry to your local Del Val Honda dealer or visit DelValHondaDealers.com today. Well, we've had great weather this weekend for Alumni Weekend. This is the final game of a 4-game series between the Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. Phils have won the first 3, and they're trailing it by 2 here in the bottom of the 6th inning. They'll have Dominic Brown, Freddie Galvis, and Cody Ashe due to lead things off against Julio Teheran. Phillies have had 10 or more hits in each of the last 4 home games. So the 3 against the Braves and the last one on the last homestand. And so far they have 6 hits here today. That's an indication of how the offense has really picked it up in recent weeks. Thinking fastball, he got him something soft, a little changeup, and it's 1-1. Teheran has been good today.
Here's where plate discipline for all of our hitters is going to come into play when you're coming from behind.
Out toward right field, and that's going to hook foul. Boy, that was a curveball that was hung there. Well, Powerball goes off every Wednesday and Saturday. That's up to $40 million. Mega Millions at Tuesdays and Fridays. $15 million. Matt, before you go back to Canada, make sure you get your tickets.
Boy, I'll tell you what, with the exchange rate,
yeah,
30 cents to the dollar. Whew.
Yeah.
Yahtzee.
Yahtzee. That was a slider. And the second time today that Brown has been struck out. 6 strikeouts overall for Julio Teheran. Here's Freddie Galvis. Only 73 pitches for Teheran also this afternoon. Started talking about this before, but last night was the first time since 2011 that the Phillies had a more than one home run of 2 runs or more since the Padres game in 2011. So they had the 2 3-run home runs in last night's ball game by Galvis and Cameron Rupp. They also had a solo home run, but we got spoiled all those years with those boppers in that lineup. 2-run home runs, 3-run home runs, grand slams. Get used to them. That one's pulled to the right side. Peterson into shallow right field has it. 2 outs.
Yeah, Tommy, you get a lineup full of boppers, like you were saying. You know, the old come from behind game is not that difficult.
Yeah.
No, it's not, especially when all you need is a bloop and a blast. You usually got a bloop, blast, and a blast, and possibly another blast.
Cody singled home the first run for the Phils.
It's almost how like the Toronto Blue Jays team is built around now. A lot of power.
Speaking of the Blue Jays, wasn't David Price scheduled to pitch today? They're leading that game 2-0 over Kansas City. It's R.A. Dickey that's listed up on the board. 1-2. Maybe they're giving Price another day.
Yeah, I thought he was supposed to start today as well.
Mm-hmm. Inside, 2-2.
All right, Dickey, 7 innings, 2 hits,
yeah.
7 punch-outs.
Picked up right where he left off from the last outing against the Phillies.
And a 3 prior to that one.
And Ashe strikes out. So 2 strikeouts in the inning for Tehran. He has 7 this afternoon. He's allowed 2 runs over 6 so far. Phillies trail it by 2 as we go to the 7th. Time now for your Delaware Valley Honda Dealers game summary. Well, Julio Tehran has continued to pitch well against the Phils, which has been his norm. 6 innings today, 7 strikeouts. Jace Peterson's 3-run home run is a big difference in this game. The Braves had gone 10 straight without scoring more than 3 runs before today. So they lead it 4-2 as we go to the top of the 7th. And Justin DeFreitas will face Yuri Perez, Freddie Freeman, Chris Johnson. Trying to get another inning out of Justin. One ball, no strikes. That one's out towards short, past Freddie Galvis and into center field. Perez is aboard with his second hit. So a leadoff single here in the 7th. These lucky fans are today's Citizens 7. They will each receive a prize pack courtesy of Citizens Bank. Good banking is simple, clear, and personal. That's helping you bank better. Citizens Bank. Well, talking to Justin the other day, he said that the whole long man role is totally new to him, obviously, and he's learning as he goes. He likes the fact that he's been able to, as the runner goes, as the ball is grounded to second base, Hernandez up with it. He said he is adjusting to it. He likes the fact that he's been able to give the other guys a chance to be effective in winning situations because he's able to eat some innings, and that is the job of a long man, is to eat some innings, preserve everybody else.
Yeah, commendable attitude. Justin's a wonderful young man. You know, whatever's needed, he is willing to do.
Now, he did say that he hopes that it's not his role next year moving forward, because he feels like he has a little bit more to offer toward the back end of the bullpen. Although 95, 96, 97, 100 coming out of that pen late in games, it's hard to match that.
Well, it's hard to match that, but it also depends on how he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't been pitching great the whole year, so an area where he's going to go is middle relief. Be a long guy, he's got to realize and understand that every pitch he throws, he can't go max effort. Because if he needs to go 3 innings or 4 innings, you know, he can't go for strikeouts. He's got to go for ground balls, early contact.
I thought it was funny, though. He said to me, he goes, "Do you realize I'm the elder statesman now in the bullpen?" And we both sat there and thought about it. He's the elder statesman now in the bullpen.
With 2 years?
Pretty much. 2+. As he turns back towards second.
That's unbelievable.
Now, Genmar has time. I guess he meant more from a Phillies standpoint. Gomez has time with the Pirates. But
well, that was every year I was a rookie then.
High fly ball, left center field. Ashe on the move, out toward the wall, and he makes the catch going away.
Hit in the perfect part of the ballpark.
Sure was.
Well, there's only one better place for the opponent to hit the ball, and that's out by the 409 sign. Cody made a nice catch, a long run after that ball. Had to get a good jump on it. Watch it in the glove.
What I like about that catch by Cody Ashe is that he did not coast one time. He ran with the ball. Figured where it was going to come down, got to the spot. A lot of outfielders will coast, and then the last second they'll have to do that lunge.
Well, now Johnny Gomes with a runner at second base. Off the glove of Rupp, but it pops in front of him, and it's 1-0. Well, an update from Lehigh Valley, where Chase Utley is playing Norfolk. 2 for 3 with 2 singles. Jesse Biddle pitched in that ball game, went 6 1/3, allowed 4 runs. Iron Pigs are trailing that one 4-0. Jesse's pitched well, which is good. Breaking ball, and it's 1-1.
Hard to get old Johnny Gomes to swing that bat, isn't it?
That's 12 straight pitches he hasn't swung.
Maybe he's just hunting for that one pitch.
Either that or he's just not seeing the ball well.
Could be. Well, he swings, and it's over the head of Franco into left field. Heading home is Perez. The throw by Ashe to the plate is offline. It was a strong throw, but Perez is too quick, and it's now a 5-2 ball game. An RBI single for Johnny Gomes.
Well, I liked him better when he was taking.
Yeah.
Well, he was patient, that's for sure, and maybe this is the reason why he was waiting for a hanging slider. Doesn't his job hitting the ball to left field. Strong throw by Cody. Just not on time.
Pete Buchanan's coming out. It looks like he's going to make a double switch as Justin DeFreitas' day is done. Jeff Francoeur will come in. And Francoeur looks like he's going to left field. So Genmar Gomez will come on to pitch for the Phils. Phillies trail it now by 3. Well, we've got another pitching change here in the top of the 7th inning. Well, this Thursday when the Phillies wrap up their series with the Los Angeles Dodgers, it's the final Citizens Bank Business Person Special of the year. And it's also the Pride of the Phillies print featuring the Phillies mural that'll be given out to all fans. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. After the game, if you're 14 and under, then it's Nemours Kids Run the Bases. Again, tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. Well, the Phillies trail at 5-2 here at the top of the 7th inning with 2 outs. Jeff Francoeur is in, and this double switch, Genmar Gomez is in for DeFreitas, and Jace Peterson, who homered his last time up, will be the batter, and he hits that one out towards center field, swinging at the first pitch, and it drops in front of Herrera. And Peterson now with 3 hits this afternoon.
First ball hitting, the Braves are giving the Phillies a little taste of their own medicine.
Absolutely.
Boy, it's hard to get that 4-game sweep. They're going to have to work hard now.
Last time the Phillies swept the Braves in a 4-game series was back in 1995 at Fulton County Stadium. Last time they swept the Phillies in Philadelphia in a 4-game series was back in 1949. But it is hard to do. Lavarnway takes a strike. It's 1-1.
Tom, I think at the north of the border,
Yeah.
there's some hatred going on between Toronto and the Royals.
Well, they may face each other in the postseason.
A little bench clearing brawl.
Blue Jays leading that game 3-0. Swing and a miss, 1-2. Now, John Gibbons, the manager of the Blue Jays, is going to be in a little bit of trouble because he was already ejected from the game, and after the
bench is cleared.
Bench is cleared. He sauntered out from his office. Not allowed to do that.
Is that a no-no?
That's a no-no.
Really?
Can't come back in from the clubhouse. One ball, 2 strikes to Lavarnway. In the dirt, and it's 2-2. Seems like we got some tempers going on all around baseball. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati also.
Nice. I mean, bad.
From the man who watches hockey fights before each telecast. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
It's that time of year.
It is that time of year. Rudders will be off on this pitch. See if Jim Moore can get out of this. That one's hit sharply back toward the middle, under the glove of Freddie Galvis. 1 run will score. An RBI single for Lavarnway. He's now 2 for 4, and it's now 6-2 in favor of the Braves.
Same ball again. That's like the 3rd one that is going by Freddie, right there in that same spot, just out of his reach. Another 2-out run for the Braves.
Yep. He must have been shaded over toward the hole.
Yeah, he was, and all 3 of them he was shaded over towards the hole.
Well, here's Castro now, who's 1 for 3. No balls, 2 strikes to Castro. A sinker that stayed way up. It's 1-2. Gomez has had himself a nice run for the Phil's bullpen. We mentioned the numbers last night overall for the bullpen. And the ERA coming into today, 1.79. And I'll go up a tick or 2 because of the 2 runs charged to Freitas. Back to the mound, and Gomez has got it. Side is retired. 1-3 on the putout. 2 more runs scored, though, for the Braves. Phillies trail it now 6-2 as we stretch here in Philadelphia. inning. They trail at 6-2. HP's new series of color LaserJet printers deliver unmatched quality, and their Jet Intelligent Toner cartridges print up to 1/3 more pages. Get yours from who but WB Mason today and experience the difference. Nobody beats WB on HP. Phillies will have Cameron Rupp and then Jeff Francoeur, and then the top of the order. Well, last night, Cole Hamels, while the Phillies were winning here 12-2, went 7 2/3 against the Giants, allowed 8 hits and 5 runs. He did not get a decision in a game that the Giants wound up coming from behind to win. But he did a very classy thing. He and his wife Heidi today in the Philadelphia Inquirer. He said, "Thank you to the Philadelphia fans." Beautiful picture, and then a nice note underneath talking about the fans embracing Cole and his family and everything that the Philadelphia Phillies have done during his time here. It was a really nice way to say goodbye to the Philadelphia Phillies fans by taking that out.
I think it was a very classy thing for Cole to do.
And last night, well, he got victimized by a team that has victimized him the last couple times he's been out there against the Giants, and a guy that he just can't get out, and that's Buster Posey. I don't know what it is, but Buster Posey can hit him.
Saw that home run Buster hit. It was a little sort of off balance. He got fooled a little bit. It was a change up, threw the bat out there with one hand and flew it over the left field wall.
Jake Diekman has pitched well in 2 outings for the Rangers. Also involved in that trade.
Yeah, came in last night, faced one hitter, struck him out on 3 pitches.
The night before, I think he faced 5, right?
Inning and 2/3.
Yeah, an inning and 2/3. He just gotten off the plane with Cole. 0-2 now to Cameron Rupp here in the 7th inning. Yeah, that's high, 1-2. Meanwhile, the guys that have come over in the deals in that deal from the Rangers, one of whom will start on Tuesday for the Reading Titans. The Alfaro kid was actually here yesterday at the ballpark. Did you get a chance to meet him, Mike?
Yes, I did. What an impressive young man. Wow.
He's the catcher that the Phillies got from the Rangers, who's injured right now, has a bad ankle. He's a big kid.
Yeah, all the comments I've heard from people about him is he could very well be on our club next year. He's a real deal. I believe he's a switch hitter.
That's a good question. I think he is. Chopper over toward the hole, and that will leak into left field, a base hit. So Cameron's aboard.
You know, I'm a proponent in comeback baseball of making the pitcher pitch, making the at-bats go deep. You have to do a little more hitting with 2 strikes when you do that. Cameron did check swing the first pitch, and of course we have Jeff Francoeur coming up here right now. I'm not sure if Frenchie's going to be taking anything, but I do believe you have to let the pitchers dig a hole for themselves when you're trying to come from behind, especially 4 runs. You need help from the pitchers. That's the opposing pitchers.
Francoeur does take a pitch that is a strike. It's 0-1. Alfaro is right-handed. I believe he did experiment with being a switch hitter back when he was younger. He had been in Double-A before an ankle injury. Chopper softly up the third base line. Johnson comes charging bare hands. He has no play. He didn't have a grip, and the Phillies have runners on first and second with nobody out here in the 7th inning.
Well, that's exactly what you need to put the ball in play. Make the third baseman has to barehand it. Not necessarily had to, but he did. He elected to. Now we have a little something going. We got to continue that approach of trying to get the tying run to home plate.
See right there, he didn't have a proper grip on the baseball, and very smartly decided not to throw it. It's hard to say where that ball would have went.
It may have wound up in the stands.
Might have hit the Fanatic.
What is this, Bull Durham? Here's Cesar Hernandez, who doubled his last time. It's 1 ball and no strikes. Well, the Braves do have a righty and a lefty up in the bullpen. They're probably not going to waste too much time going to the bullpen here if Tehran gets into more trouble. He's got a 4-run lead. Detweiler's lefty. Frazier was up, but now it looks like Aardsma is going to get up. Out towards center field. Maben comes on and makes the sliding grab, and the runners have to go back. Well, he stayed under control to make that catch.
That's a big out right there. It's by a foot from being bases loaded and nobody out. Great play by Maben. Sliding backhanded catch.
Well, and he plays shallow in center field. He gets great reads on the baseballs that are hit. Key is he didn't hesitate. He went after it.
Well, Roger McDowell out to talk to Tehran with Odubel Herrera due up. They're probably giving Aardsma a chance to get warm just in case. Detweiler's ready. They're not going to make a change yet. Detweiler would probably be for Howard. MLB.TV will give you a chance to watch every out-of-market game live or on demand in true HD. Get real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and more. Every night on every device. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details. Runners lead off first and second. Herrera does have a hit today and an RBI. Start off with a changeup, and it's 0-1. Toward right field, playable for Perez. Rupp gets back to second. He'll tag and draw the throw. And there are 2 outs. And here comes Franco.
I gotta believe that's a ball that Herrera would like to see again. A hanging changeup and just hitting off the end of the bat. And look at the location of this changeup. It's supposed to be away.
It just had enough movement away from him.
Yep. Last second.
You know, to get to the end of the bat.
And just by his reaction, I would agree with you on that one, Matt.
A hanging changeup you just dream of, most of the days. They go so far and loud.
That'll be out of play over the Phillies dugout. And it moves to 1 ball and 2 strikes to Maikel Franco.
He felt like he had one to hit there. Again, I think the adrenaline's really kicking for Maikel right now.
Fights it off, foul.
Here's a discipline pitch right here, Matty. He's came at him with two good fastballs, both of which he fouled off. And I don't know. I just can't see him continuing to challenge him with fastball.
No, you think he's going to come with a off-speed pitch, or maybe climb the ladder with a heater. No, they're sitting up off, way off.
Out toward right field, playable for Perez. It's not that deep, and he puts it away. Side is retired. It was a fastball that looked like it ran toward the outer edge. Phillies do threaten, do not score. We're on to the 8th inning, down by 4. Visit buyatoyota.com to find out. Toyota, let's go places. Buy McDonald's. Double the love at McDonald's with a double cheeseburger and small fry for just $2.50. McDonald's, I'm loving it. And buy the Quality Plus Ford stores. Go further. Well, Julio Teheran's day is complete because Pedro Ciriaco's coming up pinch hit for him. Oh, it's time now for our Hyundai defensive plays of the game.
Yeah, and the spotlight is on the center fielders. Freddie Freeman hits the ball to right center. Herrera does a very nice job going to his left. Good concentration. Making a diving slide and catch. And Hernandez, the missile up the middle. David gets an unbelievable jump, makes a nice catch. That's your Hyundai defensive play of the games, brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers.
You know, it's interesting that play by Maben preserved Hyundai. But Matt, in Canada, it's called
Hyundai.
It's actually DAI, isn't it?
Yeah. Ciriaco takes on the outside corner, 1-1. Ciriaco 8 for 24 as a pinch hitter. It'll be Ciriaco, Maben, and Perez. At a tapper foul, 1-2. Well, it was Freddie Freeman who said after yesterday's game, he said, every day we come to the yard, we hope for something to click, because they had lost a half dozen in a row. Well, they've had some things click here today, and it starts with their starting pitcher.
Agreed. He lived up to the billing in the opening, a nemesis for those Philadelphia Phillies. We had him on the ropes early on. As Matty said, we had the Cameron Rupp at bat with first and third, 1 out, 1 run in. Came away with nothing. There's a big momentum shift early in the game.
Yeah, because if you get another run there, it probably creeps into his head. Oh no, here we go. This is what the Braves have done since the 8th of July, 4-16. That's after they were at the 500 mark. We left them, and they were thinking, we might be able to do something with the wild card, or even in the division, because the division's so up for grabs. Quick turnaround. Dominic Brown in right field. Puts it away for the first out.
Dominic broke his glove in a little better today.
Oh, he sure did. Every time the Phillies pitchers retire the opposition 1-2-3, Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity, the official entertainment provider of the Philadelphia Phillies. 1-1-2-3 inning today for Phil's pitching. Chopper to short, charging Galvis. He's up with it. 2 down here in the 8th inning. Let's check in with Murph. He's got the Major League Notebook. Murph, take it away.
All right, thank you, Tom. Brought to you by St. Joseph's University. And there's going to be a change at the top of the Red Sox organization. After this season, Larry Lucchino says he will step down as president and CEO of the team. Boston native and current COO Sam Kennedy is going to take his place. Lucchino said that he will stay with the team in some capacity. Under his leadership, of course, the Red Sox won 3 World Series in the past 12 or so years. So he is stepping down as well. A.J. Burnett is also headed to the disabled list, guys. He had some pain in his elbow during his last start. He's going to have an MRI tomorrow, and he told reporters that if surgery is needed, and he says he thinks maybe it is, that he has thrown his final pitch. He said he's not going to have the surgery and not going to be able to rehab and come back from that. Now, if he only needs rest, he said if he can come back and still be a valuable member to the Pirates organization, he will come back and pitch. But if surgery is the answer, then he is probably going to step away. One of the reporters asked him, guys, when he started feeling the pain in his elbow, and he said about 10 years ago. So, which I thought was a terrific answer. But yeah, we may have seen the last of A.J. Burnett, guys.
Well, he had a wonderful first half, which gave him a chance to play in the All-Star game, or at least participate in the All-Star game. He didn't pitch. It was a nice honor for him, and he was one of the reasons why the Pirates were able to keep pace with the Cardinals or be atop the wild card. That'd be a huge loss, though, for them.
Now all of a sudden the August deadline would be glooming for them. They'd be looking for another pitcher if they lose AJ.
Within reason, though, financially, I would think.
Yeah.
2-1 pitch. That one's pulled towards short, not hit hard, spinning to the glove of Galvis. And a 1-2-3 8th inning for Genmar Gomez. Phillies will come to bat in the bottom of the 8th inning, trailing it by 4. Ryan Howard will lead it off. They can be. Groups of 25 or more are eligible for fundraising opportunities that benefit their designated cause. It's a great way to raise funds and awareness. Learn more at Phillies.com/group tickets. We go to the bottom of the 8th inning. The Phillies trail at 6-2 to the Atlanta Braves. Final game of this 4-game series. Phillies will take tomorrow off and then wait for the arrival of Jimmy Rollins and the Dodgers. Andrew McKirahan is the new pitcher for the Braves. 8th game for him. Second time he's faced the Phils in this series. Outside corner, 0-1. Bob McClure talking to Cameron Rupp. Phillies do have bullpen action. Luis Garcia has not worked that much recently. Now the Braves bullpen, like the rest of their roster, has been remade. It's hard to remake a bullpen in the middle of the season. Phillies have basically done that in some ways. Howard doubled and scored his first time up, and he's grounded out twice, both to the right side. And he fouls it away. Well, Ryan Howard, last 7 games, here's his spray chart where his hits have gone. The green are doubles.
What's that one right there?
That is a...
That's the leg ball.
Is that one he legged out?
Yeah, he legged it out all right. Hit off his leg and he legged it up the line.
Well, with a lot of those hits, it shows that he's using the big part of the field, left center, right center, getting a couple of doubles down the left field line. But mainly his thought process has been gap to gap, which that's where his power is. Especially left center with the Xfinity.
Rakes his bat right over the mound, spinning, bare hand by Castro. Actually, that's Peterson, and it'll be a base hit, so we'll have to put another dot in there.
Yeah, he's working up the middle.
Yes, he is.
And thankfully,
I got to tell you, that is an awful play by that second baseman. No, it really is.
Because he should have gloved it and thrown it.
Oh, my gosh. Or let the shortstop have it. I mean, no reason with Ryan Howard running, all due respect to Ryan, that, you know, something other than a slow roller that you really have to barehand, but some kind of a ground ball in the infield. If you barehand it, you're obviously risking turning it into a base knock.
Breaking ball, and it's 0-1. I guess that goes down as to know your base runner.
Oh, definitely.
Dominic's getting the bad habit today of hitting away from the baseball again. He was so good keeping that front side in.
That one will spin back toward the middle. Peterson flips to second for one, over to first in time. 4-6-3 double play. Tight at second, tight at first.
Well, the same guy that I think made a very good play the previous batter made a wonderful play right there, turning that slow roller into a double play. Nice exchange there at second base. I guess Dominic probably didn't get out of the box very well. And Ryan couldn't get there to break the double play up.
Yeah, Pete Mackanin had come up the stairs. I think he thought maybe there was a bobble at second base before the foot stayed on the bag, but it looked pretty clean. So 2 outs here in the 8th. And here's Freddie Galvis, who is 1 for 2 today. 0-2. Freddie went a reaching for that one.
You know, Freddie's supposedly naturally right-handed.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty good hitter right-handed. I mean,
Ball's knocked down by Freeman, flips to first, and he is safe at first. He was almost out because he slid, but they'll call him safe, and we'll see how they score that. It was a nice try by Freeman to get to that ball.
Well, it's good he made contact, poked the ball the other way, and hustled and got on base. But I was going to say, Matty, I had my way. I tried to talk him out of that crazy open stance. To calm his pre-pitch routine down a little bit.
Now it's funny, the umpire's waiting to see if he's going to challenge, but the Atlanta Braves pitcher's already on the mound.
He's already on the rubber, and then he stepped off. Now he's back on. It was close play.
Yeah.
Mike, I think that front foot has gone even farther out.
Yeah, it inches out. You can measure it on that line.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think that with his foot being so far to the almost out of the batter's box, there's just so much movement to get back into a hitter's position. And in order for him to hit a ball to right field like he did, he's basically just diving and hitting everything to right field.
Agreed. Here's a question for you. With 2 outs, a 2-0 count on Darren Ruff, who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. Would you have him take so that the possibility of a borderline pitch that he might swing at might be called ball 3 that lead to a walk, or would you let him swing away here?
I'm in this situation a lot, so I want to swing 2-0. I don't want to take the aggressiveness out of a pinch hitter. But it's so important that you're looking for one area, your strength.
Well, he fouls it back, and it's 2-1.
I think a pretty good swing at it. And that was a fastball. I know what you're saying. I mean, if you take a pitch, yeah, it's borderline 2-1. I just hate to see guys that are coming off the bench to take a pitch that is their pitch to hit. Because I came off the bench many, many times, and when I had that manager tell me, you're taking a strike, I hated it.
Well, yeah, every hitter hates to be told that they need to take a strike. But it's the understanding of what the reasoning behind that is.
Right.
He's late on that fastball, and the side is retired. Phillies do get a couple base runners, a hit and an error. They leave one. We have played 8, the final day of this 4-game series. We go to the top of the 9th. Braves were able to mount an attack where they scored 4 runs in the 5th, and 3 of those came on our W. Mason delivery of the game. This is Jace Peterson back in the 5th.
Oh, yeah, we know how that happened. Put 2 men on base, went to 2-0 with Jace Peterson. They improved the fastball after pitching around Johnny Gomes, or pitching Johnny Gomes very carefully, who was in the middle of that take period. He kept the safety on there for a couple of at-bats and ended up scoring on that big run there. Jace Peterson's blow. That was the W.B. Mason delivery of the game.
That's it. At least up until this point. We go to the top of the 9th inning. Luis Garcia, 48th ball game for Luis. Take over for Genmar Gomez, who had an inning and a third. 2 hits, no runs. Freddie Freeman takes strike 1. It's 0-1.
Freddie Freeman 0 for 4 in this game. 3 scorching line drives to the outfield and a pretty hard hit ground ball.
And a lot of frustration in his body language, too, after the last one.
And the biggest defensive play in the game, robbing Ryan Howard of a potential double with a couple men on. I don't know, the 5th or 6th.
5th inning, yep, bottom of the 5th. The ball gets by him. It's easily a tie ball game. There's Vizcaino in the bullpen. He was 1-2-3 in last night's game. One ball, 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Way upstairs, 2-2. Braves will go home to take on the Giants. The Phillies will have an off day and then wait the arrival of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are finishing up their freeway series against the Angels today.
Phillies will see Alec Wood.
Yep, Alex Wood, the first game.
Who they just saw
with Atlanta. Yep. Brett Anderson, another lefty, in game 2. And then the day game will feature Zach Greinke and David Buchanan. Another foul ball. Remains 2-2. Dodgers come in sitting atop the National League West by just a game and a half over the Giants. Seems like that race is going to come down to the wire too. Somehow the Giants figure out how to do it. Not sure how they do it.
Cardinals, they're in the same mold.
Yep.
I'd say I would never coach or promote an uppercut swing, but this guy surely is a good hitter with one.
That's why he's a very good low ball hitter. Uppercut swing, heavy on his front foot, just straight uphill. Very good hitter.
Got to be amazing hand-eye coordination.
Strong, knows the strike zone very well.
Just tried to stay alive on that one and punches foul. Three and 2 to Freddie Freeman. Freeman, Johnson, and Gomes are the scheduled hitters for the Atlanta Braves. Cesar Hernandez in shallow right field takes care of Freeman. It's a long at bat. Turns out to be an 11 pitch at bat for Freddie Freeman, and he will walk away 0 for 5 in this game so far.
That's where the game here. You cannot figure this game out. He had 5 very good at bats.
Yeah.
2 at bats, he saw a lot of pitches. 3 at bats, squared it up 3 times, and he walks away with an 0 for 5.
5 foul balls in that AB. Johnson hits it the other way, 0-1.
Well, for starters, his problem was the first 3 at bats he hit the balls where there were fielders.
Right, so he was a dumb hitter.
Up and in, 1 ball, 1 strike. 98 on that fastball from Garcia. A little stronger today. He's had a few days off.
It's going to be interesting to see how Garcia does fitting in that role of the 8-hole spot and setting up Giles. You can tell he has the confidence this year. He has the ability. He has a tremendous slider, well above fastball.
Just a remarkable story, though, considering where he was just a couple years ago, out of baseball.
Cutting hair,
teaching, doing some baseball teaching in northern Jersey. Got him. There's that slider. I mean, it's remarkable how 95, 96 could be out of baseball.
Well, it's amazing how this slider was out of baseball. And that's a very good slider. Just to have the ability to throw that hard and have that type of slider. Yeah, he hit a speed bump maybe, once or twice during the season?
Yeah.
But he locked it in pretty quick.
Well, here's Johnny Gomes. Take mode.
I'd ask the question, will he pitch in winter ball, do you think?
I don't think he will. I mean, I don't think he did last year. For some of these guys, it's probably too much at this point, after a long workload of the regular season.
Oh, yeah, I would hope that he doesn't.
He got him. Boy, he had a really good slider in this 9th inning. 1, 2, 3 go the Braves. Last chance for the Phils to try to get a 4-game sweep of Atlanta. When we return, Vizcaino will be on the mound. this Phillies series with the Braves. Stay tuned for Cure Auto Insurance presents Phillies Post-Game Live. On Tuesday, don't forget, announcers on deck. That's right, we're going to be out in the stands down in the Diamond Club, first row, right near the Phillies on-deck circle, right behind where Jeff Francoeur is standing, getting himself ready to bat here in the bottom of the ninth inning. It's all part of the Phillies and the Dodgers, Game 1 of the 3-game series.
I got to believe that we're going to be sitting right behind Frenchie, because he'll play the first game. It's a left-hander.
Yeah.
Pretty good chance he's going to come over and chat with us.
That'd be great. That's what we're looking for, Matt. A little interaction. Vizcaino's first pitch is inside. 1 ball, no strikes. Game 1 of that series, Alex Wood against Jerome Williams. Down the right field line, foul. It's 1 ball, 1 strike. Phillies have reached double digits in hits. It's the first time this year they've gone 4 straight games with 10 hits or more. In fact, it's the first time since 2010. Swing and a miss, 1-2.
That's why I couldn't manage in today's game. I'd have had that take sign on that second pitch.
Yeah.
Players would hate me.
Strike 3. The camp thought that may have been a little low. Boy, Vizcaino's got a live arm.
He does. Very good arm. Tops out at 98 miles an hour. As we just seen, he has very good control.
Here is Francoeur. 273, 9 homers, 33 runs batted in.
Now, is Vizcaino their closer? I thought Jason Grilli was.
Grilli's hurt. They traded Jim Johnson. The thought is that Vizcaino, now that Jim Johnson is off to Los Angeles, that he will assume that role.
Grilli actually tore his Achilles, covering a ball at first base.
Wow.
Ruptured Achilles.
That ball was smoked foul. How he's okay, I have
Did that
no
ball
idea.
hit that guy?
I think it did.
Well, I think he's in shock right now. So that doesn't bother me.
He said it's okay.
Oh, not in the head.
Yeah, in the head. Right on the side of it. It's like Brett Myers in Chicago that one day. 2 outs. Yeah, right there.
Oh, my Lord.
God bless him.
That is a hard hit.
He's going to remember Rob Manfred's name for a while.
Yeah, next time we have the toughest man in Philadelphia.
That's it right there.
Oof.
Wow. Cesar Hernandez is a double today. That's his 1 hit. And it's 1 ball and no strikes.
He finally touched it.
Johnny Gomes runs it down, makes the catch, and the side is retired, and that will finish up this 4-game series. The Braves salvage it. They end their losing streak, and they win it today by a final of 6-2. Jace Peterson's 3-run home run, well, that spurred them on to victory. That gave them the lead for good. And our Chevrolet player of the game, the guy who was able to then settle down and really settle the Phillies offense down, Julio Teheran.
Yeah, he did what you guys talked about in the open. He shut the offense down. Very good fastball. Thought today had a very good late break on his curve.